not, Nell? This is a logbook entry from the 6th of May 1988. Brownie's Sauna. A caller who works for Brownie's rang to say that it was raided yesterday. About 50 police entered premises at 8 p.m-ish and carted off most of the customers. Brownie's will reopen tomorrow, 7/5/88.
You're listening to The Logbooks, untold stories from Britain's LGBTQ+ history.
I'm Tash Walker.
And I'm Adam Zmith.
Since we finished making the Logbooks podcast in 2022, we've been writing a book published by Faber. It's called The Logbooks. And Adam's turned 40.
You too.
I don't look at those.
The book goes deeper into Switchboard's archive and other archives and includes more stories from the 70s, 80s, 90s and noughties. 4 decades.
Listening to queer people's essential stories is always central to our work.
So in this season of the podcast, we want to share some of the interviews we conducted as research for our book.
Now you too can listen to all the amazing, powerfully queer storytellers we've listened to in their own words, with their own voices. So we're about to hear from someone who your background's kind of similar?
Yes, so this is Graham McKerrow, who was a journalist for years, and I also worked as a journalist for a few years in a few different places. And so I think partly I was drawn to Graham because he had that similar background to me, but also because he co-founded Capital Gay, which is an incredible newspaper. And now for us as, historian type people and writers, Capital Gay is an amazing resource because you can look back at what was going on a week by week basis in the queer community by reading these old issues of the newspaper. So I was just really into speaking to him.
Yeah, and let's not forget that you also founded your own newspaper that you delivered to your sister and your parents every day. I
did, yes, exactly. When I was about 7 years old, I think. Yes, I did found my own newspaper. It was not called Capital Gay. Capital Cleethorpes, maybe. So the other thing about Graham as well that when I first interviewed him that struck me was that he is this pretty seemingly mild-mannered, gentle soul, but with really firm and strong opinions about things. And I guess I relate to that because I'm not a sort of shouty person. I don't grab the bullhorn and, run at the front of the march. But I know what my values are and what my politics are and what my opinions are. So I guess I was drawn to Graham because I felt connected with him in that way, even though there's decades between us. But it's just another example of us meeting someone who's a few decades older than us and feeling this connection despite the years,
Yeah, totally. And of course, throughout the years that Graham's talking about, he's sharing lots of things, what it was like in the world at that time. So we do hear stories that include homophobia.
Exactly. And that is very much going to be in the sort of first half of the interview when he's talking about a lot of the activism that he was involved in as well. And actually, that was something that I hadn't spoken to him about before when we made the podcast. That was something that came up again when we re-interviewed him, or I re-interviewed him for the book. And that I was like, well, Graham, I've never asked you about these years before, so take me even further back. And so that was really interesting for me. Also, when you're listening to the interview, he talks about meeting Andrew, and there he's talking about Andrew Lumsden, who is one of the UK's actually most important gay liberation activists who passed away a couple of years ago. And he was a very dear friend of Graham's as well, and also a writer, another journalist as well, actually, and a painter and everything. And Graham also talks about Mark, who's his boyfriend and partner. So you'll hear him talk about Mark and you'll hear him talk about Andrew. So let's listen to him now. Okay, I want to ask about the people that you've known through your life that you've looked up to, and that can be people who are older than you. It can even be people who are younger than you. But I'm wondering, who were the first people in your life who were LGBTQ plus, as we'd say now, or, you know, there might be gay men or lesbians, I'm not sure, who I guess who were older than who you sort of felt a kind of affinity with and wanting to like learn from them and be guided by them.
Yeah.
Was it when you went to Gay News?
Yeah, it probably was, really. I mean, I think first of all there were I mean, my hometown is Oxford, which is a very nice liberal city, so it's a great place to come out. And the first older gay men I knew were, I don't know how much I was aware of it at the time, but looking back, they were clearly injured by the amount of oppression that they'd suffered. And so they weren't people I particularly looked up to or admired. They hadn't been activists, they'd just been hurt. And so I think there were a lot of people around, people who were 10 or 20 years older than me or older more than that, who were just damaged, really damaged by oppression and hatred and fear and the closet. And I came to London and, there were activists in Oxford too, but they were mainly younger. And so I did, and then I learned a lot from them. But I think we were all learning from each other. There were, so that was very exciting. And that was very anarchic kind of activism. That was spray painting gay love on the police station or challenging a pub's license because it, refused to, had a sign up that was code for no puffs. Yeah. I got wrongfully arrested on a not a demonstration, but a protest. My friends Judith and Caroline were having a party, and so we were meeting at their squat, and they'd been thrown out of their local pub for kissing a couple of nights earlier. So we kind of unanimously went, well, let's go and have a kiss-in. So the party was delayed while we all went down to the pub. There was 50 of us or something went into this pub, and we all started kissing. And so the landlord started shouting, and the landlady started shouting, and their daughter started screaming, their grown-up daughter working behind the bar. And then one of our number obviously got a bit overexcited and felt he had to leave, so he left. But on the way, he was drumming his fingers on the windows, and he broke one of the windows and fled. And then the police arrived, and the police said to the landlord, "Can you see the person who broke the window?" And the landlord pointed to me. So I was frog-marched off to a police car, and they... and then the police tried to move everybody on, and they all went, "No, you've got Graham and he didn't do it, and so we're not going till you release him." So they then started arresting people for obstruction, and then they decided I hadn't done it, so they released me. So then it became a question of getting them out of the police station and going to court and defending them. So there was a court case at Oxford Magistrates Court, and I was the star witness saying I was wrongfully arrested, and these people were defending me, and then we got them all off. They all got off. But it was an interesting case. It was kind of serial solidarity. First, we were all showing solidarity to Caroline and Judith, and then they were all showing solidarity to me, and then we were all showing solidarity to the people who were arrested. But it was supposed to be a party. Do you know, I don't know how I got into this story. What was the question?
What was it? Do you remember the name of the pub?
The pub?
It was in Oxford.
I can't remember the name.
Okay, don't worry about it. No. Don't worry.
It was on Walton Street.
Well, I was asking about like gay elders, and so and you were saying how like everyone was learning from everyone else. So who would be like the first person, would you say, where this was someone who wasn't damaged in the way that those other older men that you had met in Oxford were like damaged and harmed by the society, but someone who was like, maybe it was when you moved to London, I don't know.
Well, exactly.
Someone you were like, oh, this is someone I can look up to and learn from.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I say, we were all of a similar age and we were learning from each other. And then I came to London, and in London I found, again, there was this kind of, this division.
Yeah.
And so I went to the A&B Club, which is stood for Arts and Battle Dress, in a little alleyway in Soho. And it was very 1950s, 1930s, I don't know. And it was full of a lot of sad, single, old men. Mm-hmm. And that was, again, these people who'd been damaged, really, and whose lives had been blighted by the illegality and oppression. And on the other hand, I also remember meeting a man who said, oh, it was so much better before 1967. It was so much better when we were illegal, because there was camaraderie and friendship and blah, blah, blah. And of course, he was remembering when he was young and beautiful and enjoying life. So, that was... but I think so. It was probably the GL. I came out in Oxford in 1974. I think it was probably, then it would be when I came to London in 1980 that I met GLFers, really. Mm-hmm. And I was in awe of them. They used language like polymorphous perversity that I never heard and didn't understand. And I thought it was all a lot more complicated than it was. And so...
Is that when you met Andrew?
I met Andrew in 81. I met Andrew.
Okay.
December 81.
Yeah.
The GLFers were really, so they weren't all older than me. Some of them were my age, but some of them were, 10 years older. Mm-hmm. And I think some of them made the politics of it a lot more complicated than it really was. Or maybe it was just that I was, in my head, making it more complicated. So it took me quite a while to sort that out I felt quite intimidated by them. And it took me a while to go, no, it's not so complicated.
Do you think that's a common thing that happens between different types of queer people or gay people, and especially between slightly different generations, that there's this tension over who's kind of got the right answer about how to do things? Is that common?
Well, I think there are two things. I think there are different groups who think they've got the right answer, and some, it's got to do, we've got to have, we've got to, I mean, in those days, it would be people saying it's got to be Marxist or it's got to be Maoist or whatever. Yeah. I think generationally, and it's not just a gay thing, I think it's very easy to put people on pedestals. I think when you start talking about calling somebody a hero or an icon or whatever, I think that's very dangerous kind of talk, because I think it disempowers people. And from my own experience, I remember when I was, teens and 20s, and I'd read about or hear somebody who'd done amazing things, and I was so in awe of them that I thought I could never do anything, and now I find people are coming to me and saying, oh, you did capital gay, oh my God, that's amazing, and defend gay is the word, and I think just calm down, it's all right, I'm just somebody sat down one day and said, what am I going to do with my life? And I want to do something, and what can I do? What are my skills? Yeah. And what can I bring to the party? So, and I just think that it's really important. It's very good to acknowledge people's achievements, but we have to do it in a way that doesn't disempower, doesn't make it seem like they're superhuman and other people can't do stuff.
Yes.
We can all do stuff. Everybody can do something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Have you had over your life relationships or friendships with younger gay men who have had that sort of attitude towards you, or have had a different attitude towards you, and you've sort of had this intergenerational dynamic, would you say, in exchange? Have you had that much?
I have, through Andrew, I met a number of younger people, and they're activists and, rebels and, and that's very exciting. But I don't feel, I think we understand each other. I understand what they're doing and they understand what I did. And, and that's kind of, and it's nice. It feels like a camaraderie, not what we were talking about, not disempowering,
not so mythologizing.
Not mythologizing, exactly.
Even though, but do you think that there is anything different or unique about this type of camaraderie happening in our community compared to like wider society?
Yes, I do. I think that...
What are the qualities of that makes it different?
I don't think it's necessarily unique to us. It'll happen with other minorities, but I think that if you... I think it's this outsider element. And I think it's that... I think that young queer activists today understand what queer activists of the past were going through, and they might not know everything, but they understand instinctively in a way, and vice versa, in a way that I still don't really feel that most straight people get. Do you know what I mean? They don't get that. And they might, they watched It's a Sin or whatever, but they have friends, but they don't, there's something instinctive that if you're a queer activist, that you get it. You know what it's like to be on the periphery.
Yeah. In your years with Capital Gay then, from 81 to 89, where were you living? What was the home set up? Where was it? What was the space and who was in it?
Well, I was living in... at Gay News, I was living in Hackney and then in Tottenham, and then in Soho. So
renting?
Hackney, renting. Hackney was I live with a trans activist called Ros Caveney, who's still active today, and. In those days, accommodation felt really difficult then. And by comparison with today, I feel embarrassed to say that, but it really didn't seem easy. Private rented accommodation was, as somebody living on a reporter's salary, I couldn't afford private rented accommodation, and certainly couldn't afford a mortgage. And so... But there were these things called hard-to-let properties. And so councils, there were properties that seemed unsuitable for families, too rough. Either the property was too rough or the area was too rough. They didn't want to put families in. So you could queue literally overnight. They'd sort of announce that at 9 o'clock on, Monday morning, they'll hand out flats on a first-come, first-served basis. And you'd have these massive queues. And Ros had queued, and she'd got a flat, and she was looking for a flatmate. And I was at Gay News, and so at the centre of a kind of web of information. And so Alison put us in touch with each other. So I was very lucky there.
So that would have been renting from the council, but in a hard-to-let place. And it's interesting, isn't it, that they said that these are not suitable for families,
right?
But they're suitable for gay journalists and trans activists.
Exactly. Right. Well, they wouldn't have known.
No, they wouldn't. But that is the effect.
That is, no, that's right. That is exactly right. Yeah. I guess from their point of view, they just thought single people were less vulnerable to families.
Yeah.
And
then after that, was that Soho?
And then I went to Tottenham, which was renting a room in a flat in a house of a friend. for a little while. And then Soho was a similar thing to Hackney, except it wasn't the council, it was the Soho Housing Association. And the gay activist Tom Howarth had got a short life property from Soho Housing. It was a flat they were going to do up, but they hadn't. And so they'd rent it at a low rent, very low rent, for, on the promise that you'd get out when they asked. Yeah. And so we were in Great Pulteney Street. And that was when I met Mark, who was just getting thrown out of his flat in the East End. Mm-hmm. So, and he moved, we met, and he moved in, and and that was him. That was still together. So that was 1982.
Okay. So then did you and Mark live together, just the two of you, from then on?
So we lived in several places. We got a mortgage, and we had various different flats in Soho and Camden and Bloomsbury. And we rented a place in Brixton. And then we wanted a big house with lots of people. We wanted a sense of community. Mm-hmm. And in those days, with mortgages, you could self-certify, which was, you didn't have to prove what your salary was. You could just say what it was. It was no good saying, well, we'll pay for the mortgage because we're going to rent out rooms. So we lied about our income, and we borrowed money, and we got this big house in Stockwell. Mm-hmm. And then we rented out rooms at below market rent, so that we could have a choice. And so some was to friends, and some was to people, we just advertised, and lots of them have stayed friends. And so we were there 29 years, and it was a real sense of family.
Adam and Tash here.
We wanted to tell you about our book.
It's called The Logbooks, Voices of Queer Britain and the Helpline That Listened.
And it's filled with more stories from Switchboard, our podcast contributors, other archives, and even the pair of us.
The Logbooks is published by Faber Books, and you can order it now at linktree.com/thelogbooks.
One of the sort of things we said right at the beginning was, this is, it's not a rule, but it's a habit that we will eat together, and we'll take it in turns to cook. And that was great, because it meant you had to cook once or twice a week. Yeah. And when it was your turn, you made an effort. And so we always ate really well. And there'd be a group of us, and we'd all just share our days. And it was lovely. It was really, really fabulous.
Why was it important to have extra people who were not just you and your partner in the house?
Because I think it takes some of the pressure off the relationship, because there are other people to talk to, moan to, or whatever. And it means, it's not all the chores aren't just down to the two of you, they're shared more widely. And there's always somebody who's having fun. There's always somebody who comes home with great tales, There's always somebody who, something funny happened at work, or awful happened at work, or whatever, interesting. So it makes life, much more fun and interesting and enjoyable.
What, can you say more about the types of people that rented the rooms from you? Did you have particular types of people that you were looking for, or?
Well, they're nearly all queer.
Yeah.
Not absolutely. Yeah. I don't think we had any straight men. You had any straight men? I can't remember any straight men. But we did have a few straight women. Mm-hmm. But we always tried to make sure that there were women in the house. Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of lesbians and lots of gay men. And we didn't want some kind of gay male thing.
Yeah. A bit more mixed is a bit safer and a bit more dynamic.
It's a bit more, it is. A bit more real, a bit more interesting, and a bit more. We're not interested in that kind of uni culture.
Yeah. Is there
I don't mean university, I mean
yes,
single.
like single, yeah. Is there a particular fond memory of the family feeling that you got in the house, like a particular party or meal or moment on the sofa or something?
No, there were lots, really. Lots. We had lots. We had parties, garden parties. We had a big garden. So we had lots of garden parties. They were lovely. And we'd have the regular meals for ourselves in the evenings, but we had lots of special, birthday meals and things, Christmases.
And was it always a mixed family house for 29 years? It was never you and Mark alone in the house, was it? There were always people.
I mean, I think it was in a real mess when we first got there. So I think it might have been just the two of us for a couple of months till we'd sorted out enough to be able to rent a room.
Yeah.
And then Chris was our first tenant, who we're still in touch with, still a friend. Yes, and from then on, right up all the way through, there was...
Who was the longest tenant?
Could have been Andrew.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was probably Andrew.
Yeah.
I mean, there were others that were there for a good long time, but I think Andrew was there 17 years. So.
Right. And what word did you use for each other? Housemates or something else? Do you remember?
Housemates, I think. Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but now that's interesting because words that Mark and I use for each other changed over the years.
Okay, go on.
So initially we called each other lovers because partner sounded too much like a business enterprise and we didn't want any confusion. We wanted a very sexual word. So we chose lover. Then partner became more accepted in the straight world and people knew what you meant. So we then used partner. And we now use boyfriend because it sounds a lot more fun.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're civilly partnered, but we're not married.
Yeah.
We don't want to get married. We don't believe or agree with marriage.
Yeah.
We just think that having a husband sounds really dull and having a boyfriend sounds rather exciting.
Do you still go on dates?
I've never been on a date in my life.
Okay. Yeah.
I've never been on a date.
No.
I've generally met people having sex with them.
Yeah.
And, so that's it really. Yeah. And then they become lovers.
Yeah.
So I've never been on a date. I've never met somebody going out to a meal in a restaurant or something.
Had you and Mark, have you and Mark been like open or closed over that time?
We've always had an open relationship.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've always had an open relationship. The biggest promise is to tell each other the truth. We had a few specific rules about if you slept with the same person more than 3 times, then you had to tell the other one. That was it, really.
And how over the 40 years? 40 odd?
2 or something. Yeah.
How over the 42 years now would you obviously there's still another 42 years to come, but how would you evaluate that particular open quality of the relationship? What kind of rating does it get for you over that?
Oh, a 10.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have worked as a monogamous. I mean, we both had sex with other people. We both had quite long relationships with other people.
Yeah.
No, we'd have gone mad. I mean, a relationship's very difficult. I mean, the fact that it's lasted 42 years doesn't mean that it's just been plain sailing and easy all the way. Yeah. There's lots of problems to overcome and points of tension. And if we'd had a monogamous relationship, I don't think we'd have lost it, really. I don't understand monogamy, really. I mean, I can see historically where it comes from, but it seems to create so much unnatural behaviour and tension. Yeah. Which is, sounds like I mean, if that's what people want, then fine, they do what they want. But
So people love the drama, don't they?
I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
I'm just baffled by it, really.
I'm just also thinking of, for 29 years, that house in Stockwell, all the different people that shared that space with you over that time, different people at different stages in their life coming in and out. And you must have had so many really interesting conversations about sex and relationships with all those people over that time.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was lovely because you're quite right. And everybody brought their partners and friends and boyfriends and shags and, and girlfriends and shags. And so, yeah, I mean, there was just a huge flux. I mean, that's part of the attraction of living in a communal household, is that you get all of that different input,
Yeah.
which makes life so interesting.
What was it like?
I find it odd. I went to a birthday party a few years ago. A friend had a birthday party, and there were no black people. There was one woman, and everyone else was a gay man in a very narrow age range, which was the host's age range. I was bored to tears, and I just thought, why? How can you? How dull? How absolutely boring to live like that.
That's very funny that you mentioned that, because I just saw on the internet the other day, there's 3 guys who are trying to establish a gay community somewhere in the Mediterranean, somewhere like hot and sunny. They're saying that Fire Island and Provincetown and these kind of gay towns in the US are way too expensive, but lots of gay men want to live together, and so they're saying, register your interest. We're looking for a site. We're going to build 80 properties. It's going to be more affordable than living in the UK, because you'll be able to have bigger space for £500,000, and it's going to be this gay male village in a sunny climate. And but if you look at the promotional materials that they're using in the pictures, to me, even though I love gay men, this just looks like hell.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I know. It's like when you see those adverts for a gay cruise, and you think, I'd love to be trapped on a boat for 3 weeks with 10,000, sort of wealthy gay men. Yeah.
With whom I can compare my body type to their body type.
Constantly.
Yeah, exactly. Final thing on that house, the Stockwell house.
Yeah.
What was it like to pack up that house and kind of close it down? And you sold it?
Yeah.
Sell it? Yeah. So pack it up and sell it, and you were moving to Deal then, I think. So that was quite a big change in your living. What was that like to go through that?
Well, I mean, there was a huge amount of practical stuff to organise, so just stuff.
But I'm asking how it felt in your heart.
I think Mark felt it more than I did. I love our life now, really. So, whereas I think he looks back with more longing on that. I mean, I miss the big garden for the garden parties and the camaraderie was great, but actually we keep in touch. We entertain a lot. We have people down for a night or two or longer in Deal, and dinner parties and things. But no, I think Mark misses it a lot. Whereas I miss it, but actually there's a lot of new stuff going on. So.
And when you were physically packing up and doing all that admin of moving, presumably then you were looking forward to the next phase.
Yeah.
And the next living. Yeah.
Yeah, quite.
And it's just you two in Deal living. Yeah. Or here, obviously.
Yeah.
Presumably that house, the value of that house had gone up in 29 years as well because of where it was and the kind of house it was. Yeah. What was that like? Tell me about knowing that the physical value of that property and all the value that you had all brought to it and put into it, and that was then, that you could sell it at a higher price.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that we sold it at a much higher price, but we bought, 2 properties with it. We bought a flat in Pimlico and the house in Deal.
Yeah.
So we didn't get, it's when you trade down that you get the money. And, but certainly, I suppose, one thing is that, at the beginning, 29 years ago, but 31 years ago, we owed an unbelievable amount of money.
Yeah.
Partly because there are 2 of us related, when you've got 2 earners, you've got 2 wages to pay a mortgage, and then there was all the money from the tenants.
Yeah.
And so that paid it all off until you get to a point where it's all paid off. And paying off your mortgage is a fabulous feeling.
Yeah.
And owning it. And it's now it's there as an insurance policy for us, isn't it? So, we live off pensions and Mark's still working. And but we kind of know that we'll have that. But of course, it's all wrong. It's no way, it's very nice for us, but it's no way to organise, the housing. There's no way to house people. There's no way to, the housing market. The phrase is wrong.
Yes.
And
because it's a market.
And then you've got governments who inflate house prices to make house owners feel richer so that they vote for the government.
Yeah.
So that it's not only wrong to have a housing market, but it gets manipulated for political ends.
Exactly. And I'm just thinking...
And it just prices people out. So it's just it's wrong all around.
I just think I love the story of what you did in that house and the home that you created and the family that you created over that time. And that is possible now, and it was possible 100 years ago, as well as in the time that you did it. And it's kind of hard, I find it hard to know, like, of all the different models that I've heard of different people living and setting up homes. And, I'm thinking of things like your house, things like the co-ops in Brixton and elsewhere, these different types of models, and even what people are trying to do now. And I kind of struggled to sort of like understand, well, is it harder now than 30 years ago or 100 years ago? Or is it that it's not harder and that you just have to have the right imagination, or that you have to find is it about the right combination of people coming together at the right time? And all of these, building all of these different home models, that's just different from the norm or the mainstream or what people expect. I'm just wondering what are your reflections on that, really, these different home and family units and how that's changed over time and where we are now with it.
Well, I think it takes work. I think you've got to decide what you want, and then you've got to make it happen. And it's no good, expecting someone else to do it, wait for it to come along, because it's not going to happen that way. Yeah. Yeah, I think you have to go, that's what I want, and now how do I achieve it? Yeah. And it's going to involve work. We bought this, it was a ramshackle, rundown house with dry rot and wet rot and every other kind of mess. And, it had been bedsits. It was a beautiful home, and then it had been bedsits. It had been, pillaged. They'd ripped out the fireplaces and things. And so just in a very short 5 years or something, it had been wrecked by these people, and then they'd been forced to sell it. And it was bought by a property dealer. I didn't even know such things existed, and we got it from a property dealer. And so they're like a property developer, but they don't do the developing. Yeah. They just
buying and selling.
Mark it up and sell it all.
Yeah.
It's sort of shocking. Anyway. So you've got to kind of take the risk, or if you do what we did, you have to take the risk, and you have to do the work, and you have to buy it, and you have to do it up, and you have to, we were painting it, the dry rot and the wet rot particularly, we've got obviously professionals in to deal with, but otherwise we were decorating it ourselves.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work, and sanding floors is horrible.
Yeah. And also, like, when you're working as well, and then you have to do that in the evening or at the weekend when you wanted to be relaxing. That's the thing about owning a home, isn't it? Yeah. It's like a whole second shift.
So, on the other hand, once it's up and running, which did take a long time, but once it was up and running, it was great. It was just fabulous. Yeah. And hence we stayed 29 years.
How many bedrooms was it?
Well, they varied, but there were 4 bedrooms upstairs, and then there was a basement that could either be 2 bedrooms or a 1-bedroom flat.
Wow, so you would always have, maybe you could have up to 5 or 6 people. Together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that is a family, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just so struck about how they went about getting the mortgage in comparison to what it would be like today.
I know.
It's like a completely different process, so much harder.
I know.
It's almost impossible.
And the ratio between like average income now and average value of property now is like gone completely out of whack to when he was talking about. And it's not that long ago. Like Graham and Mark got their mortgage, I think it was like in the early 90s, I think he said. So like it's not that long ago, but it makes such a big difference. The other thing about him talking about the mortgage and about the house that I really love to hear about is the way that they built like a really communal queer family home. Like, yes, it was him and Mark getting the mortgage together and making their home, but then they rented out the rooms to their friends and they really created a sort of intentional queer family community, basically.
And the idea of home and family are things that we talk about in a lot of detail within the book. Yeah. And you really get a sense of what it feels like to make your own home and family with what Graham said. Yeah,
and that might be one of the interviews that triggered us when we were researching the book to make sure that we wrote more about housing. And we obviously interviewed more people, Andy Picos being another one, about housing and how that's changed for queer people over the decades that we cover in the book and in the podcast. And it was the way that we covered housing in the book, I think, is a little bit different to how we covered it in the podcast. It's because, I mean, you can sort of go deeper in a book anyway, can't you? But I think this was one of the conversations that really set me thinking anyway about how do we include this theme in the book, and how do we go into like economic analyses of the housing market?
Totally. And I think that makes me think about, another broader point around the book, that we had time to be able to go into more archives, into more research, into more histories that weren't just centred around Switchboard. We used that and the interviews as a springboard, and we delve into so many different archives and stories as part of it, which is great. And it was brilliant to have the opportunity to stretch into that. And of course, if you want to hear more of the making of the book, the writing of the book, then do sign up for our Patreon, where we will be releasing exclusive logbooks content where we talk about how it felt to write the book and the process of getting a book deal and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, that's great. What is it? Patreon.com/Aunt Nell. Yeah. That's it. Easy peasy. The Logbooks is an Aunt Nell production.
It is hosted and produced by Tash Walker and Adam Zmith.
The voice of the Logbooks is Serena James.
The assistant producer is Marnie Woodmeade.
Engineered by David Pye.
Music by Tom Foskett Barnes.
Original artwork by Natalie Doto.
Thanks to Steph Dickers and team at the Bishopsgate Institute.
Our publisher, Faber Books.
The Dreamboats at Acast.
The staff and volunteers at Switchboard, and all the contributors who shared their stories.
Switchboard continues to take phone calls from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. If you're affected by any of the issues in this podcast, or need to discuss anything to do with your gender identity or sexuality, you can call Switchboard on 0800 0119 100. Email hello@switchboard.lgbt or instant message via switchboard.lgbt, where you can also donate money or time to help.